Hey guys, hello and welcome to Bardock Games tutorial series. And in this video, we're going to show you how to make a pre-game lobby that is in the middle of your map. Instead of having one that's kind of like separated out and then they teleport to a place, we're just going to make it right in the middle of the map with a barrier device. And when the timer counts down, it just drops the barrier and they can go explore the rest of your map. It's pretty simple. You're just going to need a couple things. First things first, you're going to need a barrier device. If I can spell, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and drop that barrier device. Actually, I'm going to place it on top and rotate it after I drop it on the ground, apparently. There we go. So then you just pick how big you want it to be. So I'm going to make it, let's just try like 5 by 5 by, let's go like 3. Let's see what that does. For your pregame lobby, you may want it a little bit bigger than that, but for the purposes of this video, this will be just fine. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is make sure that we're going to go into the settings of this barrier device. You want to make sure a couple things. You're going to want to make sure that it is set for a hollow box. That is very important because if it's not on hollow box, they can't spawn inside of it. They will spawn outside of it. Another thing you want to make sure is it's always enabled. So you don't want it not enabled, obviously. It's set to default on gameplay only, which is totally fine. Or you can have it set to always. I'm just going to leave mine on always. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to pick what you want it to look like. If you want them to not be able to see through it at all, you can pick one of these ones that you can't see through. Or if you want them to see the other side of the map, you can pick something like a translucent color, or translucent red, or whatever. Let's just see what that looks like. It's fine. I'm going to pick a different color for mine, but you can do whatever you want for yours. It doesn't matter, because if you pick something that they can't see through, they'll just be stuck in here until the barrier drops. But for mine, I'm going to pick something they can't see through. So I'm going to go back to the translucent red. And go through, and everything else should be good. Just like I said, just make sure you pick the color you want, or what you want it to look like, that it's enabled, and that it is set to a hollow box. This is the most important setting. And then once you're in here, you're going to set up your player spawners. I just have the one for now, but you'll need one player spawner per player. So if you have 4 players, you're going to need 4 player spawners. And then you can set them to teams or whatever you want. But inside here, you can go ahead and place the rest of the stuff that you would in a normal pregame lobby, such as like your billboards and your matchmaking portals if you choose to add those. I guess I'm going to be more specific. There we go. And then another thing you're going to need is a timer device. So you can set these billboards up just like you normally would. And I usually put the border on until I'm done with them, so that way I can find them, because they're sometimes kind of hard to see. And if you make the barrier invisible, you can post them outside and they can still see it through it. But we're going to place this in here, and you can just have your sample text, whatever you want them to say. You know how to set up a billboard device. It's not that difficult. You just come in here, you write whatever you want it to say. Hello. And then you can turn the border on or whatever if you choose. Have a clear border, or you can have whatever color. I usually, if the border is clear, I'll have it set, or if the background color is set to clear, I'll usually have a border on because otherwise it's really hard to find later. And if you don't want them to see anything, you can just turn the border off and then turn this back to clear. That's white. Go back here. And you can center it, whatever, and make the text bigger. So that way it's just floating text if you want that. Okay, so after you do that, you can set up whatever matchmaking portal or anything. These are pretty handy if you've never used these before. These are what you see kind of floating around most pregame lobbies. This lets you choose a different map to play while you're sitting there waiting or whatever. And in here, you'll just type in the island code of whatever island you have. If you have some of your other published maps, you can put the island code here. And then it'll show the picture of the map that you put on this screen, and then they can just interact with it and go to the other maps. So we got that set up. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to set up that timer device. And this is going to be like your little pregame lobby area. You're going to want to put it somewhere, wherever you want, and it can be visible or not. That's your choice. You can have it set up to where players can see it, kind of on the other side, inside, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put mine just here for now because I'm going to make sure it's not visible. And I'm just going to have it set for like a 5-second timer. And the timer name you give it here is visible to the players. The timer name up here is not. So we're going to go ahead and go through this right here. Make sure it's set to start at game start. Can interact? Nah. It doesn't matter who activates it. Completion behavior, make sure it is set to reset. And visible during game, if you have a translucent or an invisible barrier device and you do not want players to see this, just make sure it's set to hidden. If you want them to see it, you can set it to whatever. The timer is only the timer, obviously, and if you have it set to all, it will display this timer name as well. So I don't want people to see the timer. And then right there, and then timer not started text, and then timer running text. I'm going to put in here game starts in, and then success score value. You can mess with that later if you choose. I'm not going to do any score value for a pregame thing, so it doesn't really matter. And then right here, show in HUD. If you want the players to see the timer countdown in their HUD, which I do, so I'm going to leave that on. And then you can have an urgency mode as well if you choose. I'm not going to do that for this particular timer. And then the only other thing you want to do is on success, on the output triggers, you're going to go to that barrier device that you made and disable it. That's important. So now the barrier device is always enabled. Whenever the timer counts down, it'll drop the barrier and they can go do whatever they want to do. Let's test this out. So game starts in 5 seconds. That should count down and disable the barrier device. It did. Look at that. So now I can run around and do whatever. Alright. Having your pregame lobby in the middle of your map is not always something you want to do, but it is kind of handy for certain game modes. Let's say you have like a survival thing and you have a bunch of people just kind of wandering around, and you want them to be able to come back here. So, otherwise, most of the time you'll have your pregame lobby set up somewhere else, and you use like a teleporter device to teleport them other places. But if you want to keep everything kind of condensed and you want everything on the map itself, you'll do like a barrier device doing that. And make sure that you have these set to where they can't see them during the game. So just make sure that visible in game on these is turned off. Otherwise, they'll just see the little bases when they're running around playing their game, and you don't want that. Okay, so we got that set up. The other thing I want to do is if you do have the matchmaking portal, it is going to be visible during the game, the entire game. So if you don't want one, that's totally fine. The billboards and stuff, you can have like your support a creator button if you have one of those over here. I do not yet, but that should be good for that. And the timer was invisible, so that was good. All right. So this will be in the middle of the map. You can have lots of different triggers setting up, but this is just showing you how to make a pregame lobby in the middle of your map if you choose to do so. If you want to make a pregame lobby that is not in the middle of your map, you'll just have your own little building kind of set aside, like kind of I do here over here. And then you can just place your spawners in here and then have a teleporter device, or you can use what I did as an explosive device that when the timer counts down, it blows a hole in this door or in this wall and they can walk through and go wherever. Alright, so that should cover that pretty well. The next thing you want to do is if you want players to come back here after being eliminated, that's pretty simple. You're just going to make sure you come in here and have a checkpoint device. And this one you can customize however you choose. You can have it for any particular team or all teams or whatever. But it is very important that you have them register to it. If you just place one and don't do anything with it, whenever players die, they won't go back to your checkpoint device. They'll either go back to their spawn or fall from the sky, depending. So if you want players to spawn back on the checkpoint device, make sure you have them registered. So that'll be an input trigger here. Register when receiving from, and you can do it from the player spawners. So when they spawn in, they're automatically registered, or you can have different triggers as well. So that should cover that pretty well. If you have any questions, make sure you comment down below, or you can reach out to me on Facebook at Bardak Gaming. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and happy creating.